if it's leaking up top, generally it's a repair. If it's leaking out of the bottom and you don't know where it's coming from, you can stop the video here. You need a new water heater. You're gonna hear gas coming out. If you hear that, that's all good. That's what you want. Get all the parts you can at one time and just do the whole thing. I'm Brandon Brill, owner and operator of Quick Water Heater. Over the last 15 years, I've been installing nothing but water heaters and water filtration. I've heard just about every single thing that can possibly go wrong with a water heater. In this video, I'm gonna show you what to do if you go to your water heater and you find that it's off. So let's get started. I know you have a short attention span, so I'm gonna make this as fast as possible. The first thing you have to do is check for leaks. So if it's leaking up top, generally it's a repair, unless it's leaking out of the vent collar. If it's leaking out of the bottom and you don't know where it's coming from, you can stop the video here. You need a new water heater. It's that easy. If there's no water leaking up top and there's no water at the bottom, the next step is going to the gas valve. So what you're gonna do is open up your gas valve right here, and I'm gonna put this microphone so you can hear it. You're gonna hear gas coming out. If you hear that, that's all good. That's what you want. You're gonna tighten this thing back up nice and tight so nothing leaks, and then you're going to put the water heater valve in pilot. You're gonna push it in, and then at the same time, you're gonna click that button. And you're gonna keep clicking it. Every 5 seconds, click it twice. A lot of people you see on the ground trying to stick their eyeball in that, no, that's not how you do it. Just do what I'm telling you, and every single water heater will light the exact same way. You're gonna hear a small click. When you hear a click, that means that it's sensing that the pilot jet is on. That's what you want. If you have a newer controller, it's gonna give you a status light, green, blue, depending on the manufacturer. That's all good. Okay, so you're gonna keep holding past that even once it's lit, and then eventually you can let go. Say 10 to 15 seconds after the status light comes on, then you turn it to the desired setting, turn it to hot, that's 120. Now listen for it to start. So for a Bradford, it's a little bit more audible. You're gonna hear it because the burner chamber is actually outside the water heater. If it relights, good to go, right? But there's another thing that could happen. When you walk away, this water heater is gonna heat up. And then once it basically goes through a setting, the thermostat will turn it off. If you come back in an hour or two and it's off again, we have another problem. So let's proceed to the next step. Okay, so if you come back to the water heater and you catch it soon enough, while it still has a little leftover power, you're gonna see the status light will probably be some sort of bad color, red. If that's the case, we're gonna check a couple things. Most water heaters are gonna have a thermal switch, which is this little guy here. And in the Rheem case, it is going to be right here. So they essentially do the same thing. If the water heater overheats, it's going to flip the switch and turn itself off so it doesn't explode, which is great. So you've got a sensor here, and then you've also got the trip switch here. So you want to make sure that this little knob on the top is pushed in. If it's pushed out, that generally means that you have an issue. Either it's not getting enough air inside the burner, which comes through the sides here. Some water heaters have a little like a cover here which collects any dust and debris. You want to clean that off. Then you want to also come up to the top of the water heater, and you want to make sure that your baffle is in the right place. Let's look at this Rheem water heater here. You see this little tab? You want to make sure that that is inside the notch. If it's sticking up, it will cause the flow to be restricted, and that's no good. So basically, as long as the little notch is inside here, that means the baffle is sitting down in the flue perfectly and everything is good. The next thing you want to check is your venting. You want to make sure that there's a clear flow, right? So when you turn it on, you're going to want to make sure that your hand, when you put it here, is cold. The exhaust should not be shooting out the side. It should be sucking air in, drafting air and exhaust up the chimney. If it's not, you probably have an issue with your venting. So you want to follow the process up the top and basically check to see how your vent is doing. That is extremely unlikely and not most likely the case. The case is you probably have an issue with either your thermal switch, your controller, or the thermal pile or thermocouple. The newer water heaters have thermal piles. They're a little bigger. The older water heaters, which I have a video on YouTube, has a little skinny thermocouple. So the first step is, if it's not lighting, you want to check your switch, make sure that's good. If you have an inclination that this is an issue, you want to check this as well. What you can do here is you can jump the switch. See those two prongs right there? Basically what you would do is put a paper clip in the exact same two positions right there, and that will override this sensor. That way you can know whether this is bad. If it kicks on and everything is good with that, then you know that that's the issue. You need to call Bradford White and you can pick up a part and replace this. If the thermal switch is bad, what you want to do is just take this paper clip and bridge the thermal switch here and see if the pilot light will stay on in that case. So if those two are broken, that's not that big of a deal. But generally speaking, it's going to be the controller. And in that case, we're going to have to change it. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. But before you do that, you want to make sure that you call the manufacturer. So you're going to have to call Bradford White or Rheem or A.O. Smith or whoever you have, get their technical support number. They'll walk you through what's going on. I'll leave the number on the video or in the comments somewhere for you to get it. And you basically need to tell them what's going on. And what they're going to do is they're probably going to try to send you out the cheapest parts first, right? Because they don't care. They're just like, hey, this part's 16 cents. But if it's not that, it could take 3 more days to get the next part, and then so on and so forth. So basically, it's kind of a battle between you and them. So what I would recommend is that you think through what they're asking you and try to get as many parts at one time as you can. Because ultimately, usually it's the controller, and in that case, they're gonna make you go through 9 days of waiting before you can actually get a controller. So careful how you answer the questions with them, because that will determine what parts they'll send to you and how long you're waiting. Okay, so in the next phase of this water heater, we're gonna show you how to change the controller, which is also the thermostat, same thing. So the first step is we need to drain down the water heater, and we need to get the parts ready, and then we're gonna swap everything out. So if you have a Rheem water heater that was built approximately 5 years ago, it's 80% chance gonna be the controller. You need to call Rheem, numbers attached to the video, either in the comments or on it. And then you're gonna tell them what's going on. They'll most likely send you a controller, and then this is how you do it. It's not complicated, but you do need to watch carefully. Tools you need: 2 crescent wrenches and potentially some channel locks, but little adjustable crescent wrenches work really well. That's pretty much all you need. And then maybe some adapters for your drill driver. All right, first step is we need to drain the water heater down. This water heater has a recirculation line. You're gonna find this usually in high-end homes. Basic 3-2, 3-bedroom, 2-bath home is probably not gonna have this, so you don't need to worry about it, but the philosophy is basically the same. So I'm gonna grab my hose. All right, so take your garden hose, put it outside, down your driveway. Anywhere outside is great. And then we're gonna open up the valve. So there's a little valve here. Just gonna open that. So here's the trick with draining your water heater, is that you want to leave it under pressure and open the valve. Don't turn off the water heater at the top and then open the valve, because you want the pressure to shoot out any debris that's stuck in there and get it out of the water heater. The next step is we need to let air into the water heater. I also have another video on this. It's called How to Drain Your Water Heater If It Won't Drain. But essentially you need to let air into it. So we're gonna open up the cold supply line, or you can open up a faucet. But I like to do everything at the water heater. You can let air in from a faucet in your house. The problem is there'll be water in between and air can't get to it. So easiest thing is to do that. And then you're gonna hear this noise. That gurgling and bubbling. So that means the water heater's draining. Okay, so now we're just gonna sit here and wait for it to drain down. When it gets all the way done, you're gonna hear another noise, kind of like a slurping. That's the last of the water, and the air's starting to come down the hose. In the meantime, let me go over the parts that we got from Rheem to do this. Okay, so I called Rheem. I told him, hey, we got 7 flashes on the controller. I'm pretty sure that the thermal switch or the thermal sensor and the controller are bad. So they sent me a new controller, which is right here. So that's what you're gonna be replacing. I ordered a new chamber sensor. If you're gonna do this, and you're gonna waste your time screwing around with technical support people, get as many parts as you possibly can. You need to look at the owner's manual. It'll tell you which sequence of of lights blinking relate to which part on the water heater. Use your brain here, get as many as you can, because here's the thing. This takes days to get. So you're gonna be without hot water for a while. This part probably costs $6. So if you don't get it and you replace the controller and then you're sitting there with no hot water, so my suggestion is get all the parts you can at one time and just do the whole thing. There's instructions in here, but I'm not gonna use those. All right, so it takes about 20 minutes to drain down a water heater. Okay, so in this section, we've got the water heater drained down. Now we're gonna start taking apart the components and replacing everything. So you're gonna need a little, I mean, it's like a T20 bit to get out these screws. There's 2 screws on the sides, and then there's one hex bolt up here. So let's get going. Take that nut off. And then we're gonna take out the screws. If you have the hand tools of this stuff, I would recommend using the hand tools because you can strip a screw with the impact wrench. Okay, next we're going to take off the main burner controller, making sure that our gas valve is off. The main jet out. Pull the sensors off. This is the igniter here, and then this is the chamber sensor. I don't remember, can we change the chamber sensor from the outside? I don't remember if we can. I think we have to change it from the inside. I'm pretty sure we take the burner first. So, this part, that's the cover. Now we are going to, so now we can take the whole burner out. Forgot about the pilot jet. Take that off. So, I mean, this is pretty darn easy once you get into it. All right, so this is what actually does all the work in the water heater. So there's your pilot jet right here. There's your thermal pile, and that's your igniter. Sometimes the thermal pile will go bad, you need a new one. Right here is the chamber sensor. We're going to change this and the controller because it was a 7 flash. The reason this is turning green is because the chamber will actually condense as the gases are burned. It goes up, condenses in the flue, and then drips back down and causes all this discoloration. So I just wanted to show you what this looks like. What we're after here is this. Chamber sensor, and then wire. So we're going to change that out. This is somewhere. And let's get going. Okay, so nothing too complicated yet. Now, this right here is called a 70 trap. So we have to take that apart in order to get into everything else. Off. Okay, and normally, get all that crap out of there. We can just spin this off with our hands. So grab it and twist. If you can't, you're gonna need a big wrench like this. A big boy. It goes all the way up to 4 or 5 inches. Yeah, so this will go to 4 inches. So that'll grab a hold of the controller and then you just spin. But in this case, this one's relatively new. We can get it out. So you just keep twisting on thread, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Pull it out. And this is our back controller. This is sides. All right, next step is putting all this back together. So I'm just putting a little bit of thread sealant back on the gas 70 trap. You don't need as much of this stuff as you think you do. You don't need to cake it on there. By the time it gets pressed into the threads, barely any of it is actually in the sealing area. Just go and twist that back in. We're gonna put a little bit on the main threads. And right back. Usually I use a little wire brush to clean the threads out. I use a 3/4 fitting brush. Get in there and make sure that everything seals up nicely. Be careful because water heaters are not made like they used to be. Everything used to be made of metal and thick steel. Now it's made of plastic and crap. So the actual stem of this is it's cross threading. So janky. Water heaters used to be amazing at one time. Used to buy a water heater like once every 25 years. Now you buy a water heater once every 2 days past the warranty period. Some places won't have a gas sediment trap, but if you don't have one, put one on. They're good. They trap any sediment that's in the line. If you don't, it'll clog up your controller and you'll be doing this again. So create a little sediment trap using some galvanized nipples and put one on the line. I hate pipe dope for that reason, but my apprentices decided it was a good idea to take my tape and my dope. So now I'm using what's left in my pan. But like I was saying, water heaters suck. The manufacturers got smart. They realized that the only way you can grow a business is by selling more product to the same customers. So rather than make a water heater last 25 years, now they last 2 days past the warranty period, which honestly is great for them and for us, but not for you. Controller and sediment trap back together. Put this down. Now what I'm gonna do is open this and I'm gonna bleed the air. Okay, should have gas in there now. If you don't bleed that, it's gonna take forever to get this to light. Alright, nice and tight. Now, let's put the burner assembly back together. Now, here's the deal. This is the thermopile. Every once in a while, that will go bad. So, same procedure. You take apart the burner, and you're going to replace the thermopile. This basically, the pilot jet shoots onto the thermopile. When it heats up, it lets the water heater know that it can turn on the main burner, which is this, and this whole thing starts shooting flames out of it. Without this will not engage. So, this is one part that you may want to change as well. Alright, now let's put on the new. So this is the new wiring harness for the thermal sensor. Screw like that. All this is just a long slug of brass, so it's nothing complicated. And all it's doing is just making sure the chamber is not overheating. So if something's malfunctioning, this is kind of a safety device so that it'll turn itself off. Nice and tight. So 7 flashes means you need a new controller and a new thermal sensor. Let's see, which one? Temperature, gas control, flame sensor, chamber sensor. So when I do the controller, I always do the chamber sensor at the same time. Number 2 is low voltage on the thermopile, so that's 2 flashes. And that's this thing right here that I was talking about. So basically, if you have an issue with your water heater, you're going to be looking at either a new thermal sensor, a thermopile, or a controller. If you don't know what's going on, try to get all 3 and just do them all at once. Wiggle that guy back in there. Check our gasket. I want to make sure the gasket's still in good shape. It is. I don't think we need to change it, so we should be good. If we do need to change it, peel and stick, gasket, new one goes on. But in this case, this water heater is pretty new. Okay, screws back in. I always hand thread these first just to be sure you don't cross thread them, because this is, honestly, these are pretty much never meant to be taken apart, so they're not assembled in a way where they go back together frequently. So they're janky. Don't over tighten these. Everything's tight. Now, pull this little cap out, and we're gonna go back in with the main jet. Sometimes you gotta wiggle the tube around to make sure that you can actually get the collar to suck in there. There we go, nice and tight. You gotta make sure you don't kink the pilot jet, or this is all for nothing. So that kink right there, not ideal, but that was already there. So I get everything hand tight. This is the igniter switch. That goes back on there. Bingo. Okay, that's tight. What else am I missing here? And the last one is thermal sensor. All right, now gas is on. Get it to relight. Keep in mind you've drained all the gas out of the controller and the tubing, so it's got to sit there and refill. Notice I'm not sticking my head down here to try to figure out what's going on in there. It's unnecessary. All right, you hear a little click click, and then you get the status light to come on, and hit it to hot, and everything's good to go. So if you get 7 flashes on a ream water heater, it turns off. That is usually what it is. You need a new controller and try to get the thermal sensor at the same time. If you're confused and you don't know what I'm talking about, try to get the thermal pile as well. Those 3 are pretty much everything that goes on with the water heater. There's really nothing else left. Pretty much the summary of what to do if your water heater is not on, right? That took you through the whole process, but the basics of it are basically check for leaks, check for gas, relight, right? Most of the time it'll relight. If it doesn't, you basically need to go through the owner's manual, figure out what part you need, call the manufacturer, get the parts, and then I just showed you how to change out the entire water heater guts. Right, so it's not complicated. That's pretty much it. That's how you do it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you need any more tips and tricks on water heaters, my channel is loaded with value. Quick water heater on YouTube, and you can find everything we do. Thank you for watching.